The night was silent on the barren alien world. The wind carried a sharp sound across the broken rocks. A lone human explorer named Daniel walked slowly, scanning the dark horizon. His boots crunched on the dry ground, leaving small marks behind. The sky above was filled with two moons, glowing faintly through drifting clouds. It was a world where humans rarely came, but Daniel was sent here on a mapping mission. He thought the place was empty, but he was wrong. As he crossed the ruins of an old outpost, he noticed strange flickering lights inside. They pulsed like a heartbeat, then vanished into the dark. Daniel stopped. His hand resting on his flashlight, something moved between the broken walls. He lifted the light, and there she was. A girl, but not human. Her skin glowed faintly blue, her eyes large and bright like crystal pools. She wore torn clothing, and her steps were weak as if she had wandered for days. For a moment, both froze, staring at each other. The human saw fear in her eyes, and the alien girl saw suspicion in his. Daniel spoke first, his voice calm but firm. "Are you lost?" he asked slowly. The girl hesitated, her lips trembling. Her voice came in broken English, soft and shaking. "Yes, lost. Need way back." Her words carried desperation. She looked around as if something dangerous might leap out of the shadows. Any moment. Daniel did not trust her yet, but something about her fear felt real. He lowered his flashlight slightly, showing he meant no harm. The girl stepped closer, her hands shaking. Her body was thin, her clothes marked with dust and strange symbols. She looked like she belonged to another world. In truth, she did. Before Daniel could ask more, the ground beneath them shook. A deep vibration spread through the ruins, making small stones roll across the floor. The alien girl gasped and pressed herself against the wall. Her eyes widened, and she whispered, "They are coming." Daniel's instincts flared. He grabbed her arm gently but firmly, pulling her away from the broken wall. "What is coming?" he demanded, but she shook her head, refusing to say. Her fear was clear, and it was enough to tell him they needed to move. The ruins seemed alive now. Whispers echoed through the tunnels. Shadows shifted, though no one was there. Daniel tightened his grip on his survival pack, ready to draw his emergency weapon if needed. The girl clung to his arm, her fear almost shaking her body apart. As they walked deeper into the ruins, Daniel noticed strange glowing symbols on the walls. They pulsed with a faint green light. The girl touched one of them gently with her hand. Instantly the symbol flared brighter, as if it recognized her. Daniel stepped back, unsure what to think. The girl turned to him and whispered, "Not safe here. Need guide." For a moment, Daniel considered leaving her. He was here only for a mission, not to risk his life for a stranger. But the look in her eyes stopped him. They were not only filled with fear but also hope. She believed he could help her, and deep inside, Daniel knew he could not walk away. He gave her a slow nod. "All right. I'll show you the way," he said. The girl's face softened, relief washing over her. But at the same moment, a sharp cry echoed from the distance. It was not human. It was not like anything Daniel had heard before. The sound crawled into his ears, sharp and unnatural. The alien girl's hand tightened on his arm. "They hunt us," she whispered, her voice breaking. The silence that followed was worse than the cry. Daniel felt the pressure of unseen eyes watching them from the dark. He shined his light toward the tunnels, but the beam cut only empty air. Still, he felt the presence of something moving. Closer, step by step. The girl's breath quickened, her glowing eyes locked on him, silently begging him not to leave her. Daniel swallowed hard and looked at the broken passage ahead. It stretched into deeper shadows, but it was the only way forward. He turned to the girl. "Stay close to me," he whispered. She nodded quickly, trembling but ready to follow. Together they stepped into the darkness. Every sound echoed louder. Every shadow seemed to breathe. The ruins no longer felt abandoned. They felt alive. Something waited inside them, something that knew they had entered. And as Daniel guided the lost alien girl deeper into the unknown, he realized this was not just about helping her. This was the beginning of something much larger, something that would change his fate forever. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk. The tunnel stretched into darkness. Daniel's flashlight flickered against the damp walls, showing strange carvings glowing faintly. The alien girl followed close behind, her steps soft but hurried. She kept looking over her shoulder as if shadows were chasing them. Her glowing blue skin shimmered faintly in the gloom. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of their breathing. Daniel could feel the tension building in his chest. He had been on many strange worlds, but this was different. This place felt alive, and it was watching. Where are we going? Daniel whispered. The girl turned her head slightly. Her bright crystal eyes filled with unease. Out of the ruins, she said. Her English still broken, but clear enough. Path is long, but safer than staying. Her voice trembled as if she herself did not fully believe her own words. As they moved, the walls around them grew tighter, forcing them to walk close together. The glowing carvings lit up faintly every few steps, responding to the girl's presence. Daniel noticed it, each time her hand brushed the stone. The carvings pulsed like a heartbeat. He frowned but said nothing. Instead, he kept his hand near the weapon strapped to his side. He had no idea what hunted them, but he was certain danger was real. A faint sound drifted down the tunnel. It was soft at first, like claws dragging across metal. Then it grew louder, sharper, like something scraping its way closer. The alien girl froze, pressing herself against the wall. Her lips moved quickly, in a whisper of her own language, words Daniel did not understand. He lifted his flashlight toward the sound, but the beam revealed nothing. The tunnel was empty. Yet the sound grew louder. "We keep moving," Daniel muttered. The girl nodded, but her hands trembled as she clutched the torn fabric of her clothes. Together they walked faster, their footsteps echoing like drums in the hollow passage. Every step felt heavier, as if the ruins themselves wanted to trap them. The path bent sharply, and suddenly the tunnel widened into a great chamber. Massive pillars rose into the ceiling, covered in the same glowing runes. The girl gasped softly and whispered, "Old chamber. Forbidden's place." Her words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. Forbidden's usually meant dangerous, but before he could reply, his light caught something on the far side of the chamber. The floor was marked with deep scratches, not random, but organized like claw marks that formed a strange circle. The air inside the chamber was colder, heavy with the smell of dust and metal. Daniel's instincts told him they should leave quickly, but the girl stepped forward slowly, almost drawn to the circle. Her glowing hand hovered above it, trembling. "No," Daniel said firmly, pulling her back, but she shook her head and whispered, "They come from here," before Daniel could ask what she meant. A sharp screech tore through the chamber. It echoed off the stone walls, piercing his ears. The girl screamed and grabbed his arm tightly. From the shadows near the circle, shapes began to move, dark, crawling figures, their bodies low to the ground. Glowing yellow eyes opened one by one, staring at them from the black. Daniel pulled the girl behind one of the pillars. "Stay quiet," he hissed. The creatures slithered into the chamber, their claws scraping against the stone floor. They were thin but long, their bodies covered in sharp scales. Their teeth gleamed in the faint light, dripping with thick saliva. The alien girl covered her mouth, trying to silence her breath. Daniel slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a flare. If he lit it, maybe the sudden light could scare them. But it could also draw more. The creatures sniffed the air, their heads snapping side to side. They made clicking noises, their claws tapping against the stone like knives. One of them crept closer to their pillar. Daniel's pulse raced as he held the flare in one hand and his weapon in the other. The girl's eyes filled with tears, her grip on his arm tight. The creature leaned closer, its sharp nose inches from the ground. It sniffed once, twice, then let out a growl. Daniel knew they had been found. He struck the flare, and light burst into the chamber. The creatures hissed and recoiled. Covering their glowing eyes, Daniel fired his weapon. The blast echoing through the chamber. One creature fell, screeching, while the others scattered into the shadows. But their screeches did not fade. Instead, more answered from the tunnels. Around them, the sound of claws echoed from every direction. "We run!" Daniel shouted. The girl nodded, and together they sprinted across the chamber. The flare still burned, casting wild shadows on the walls. Behind them, dozens of glowing eyes opened in the dark. The creatures chased, their claws clattering like thunder. Daniel pushed the girl ahead. Guiding her toward a narrow passage, they squeezed through, the creatures slamming into the walls behind them. The tunnel shook with their furious cries, but the creatures could not follow. The gap was too narrow for their long bodies, breathless. Daniel and the alien girl collapsed against the cold wall. Her face was pale, her body trembling. "They never stop," she whispered weakly. Daniel stared at her, sweat running down his forehead. "What are they?" he asked. Her lips parted, and she whispered a single word. "Guardians." The word hung heavy in the silence. Daniel's mind raced. Guardians meant the creatures were not random beasts. They had a purpose, and that purpose was to keep intruders like him away from something deeper in the ruins, something important. He looked at the alien girl, her glowing eyes staring back at him. She knew more than she had said, but before he could question her, the tunnel shook again. The sound of the Guardians echoed from far behind, still searching, still hunting. The dangerous path had only just begun. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The tunnel seemed endless. Daniel led the way with his flickering flashlight. The alien girl stayed close, her glowing skin the only other light in the dark. Her breathing was fast, her steps unsteady, but her eyes stayed sharp. The echoes of the creatures behind them slowly faded, yet the air still felt heavy. Every shadow looked alive. Every sound felt dangerous. Daniel knew they had escaped the first wave, but he also knew it was not over. The girl finally whispered, "They protect something old." Daniel turned to her, his face stern. "What do they protect?" he asked. The girl hesitated, biting her lip. Her voice was soft, trembling. "The gate. The gate of the ancients." The words meant little to him, but the fear in her eyes meant everything. She was not lying. Whatever lay deeper in the ruins, it was something even her people feared. As they walked, Daniel noticed more of the glowing carvings on the walls. They pulsed brighter now, like veins carrying light. It was as if the ruins themselves knew the girl was passing through. Daniel felt uneasy. He was just a human explorer, not meant for this place, yet the ruins seemed to react to his presence too. Whenever he touched the wall, the carvings flickered faintly. The girl noticed this and froze, staring at his hand. "You not supposed to do that," she whispered. Daniel frowned. "Do what?" She shook her head, refusing to explain further. The tunnel opened into another wide chamber. This one was stranger, filled with broken alien machines. Tall pillars of metal leaned against each other, rusted and half buried in dust. The air smelled of oil and smoke, though no fire burned. Daniel raised his light and studied the wreckage. It looked like a battlefield long forgotten. The alien girl stepped carefully, her eyes scanning every corner. She seemed to know this place, or at least fear it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "This is where the Guardians hide." Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon. The silence pressed against his ears. Then, without warning, the ground shook. From the shadows of the broken machines, something moved, not one, but several. The Guardians, larger this time, crawled out, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruders. Their bodies scraped against metal, sharp claws leaving sparks on the stone. Daniel raised his weapon, ready to fire, but the girl caught his arm. "No, wait," she hissed. "They test us. Not kill yet." The Guardians circled them slowly, their clicking sounds filling the chamber. Daniel's heart pounded, sweat dripping from his forehead. One of the creatures lunged suddenly, but instead of striking, it stopped inches from his face. It hissed, its breath foul and hot. Before pulling back, the girl stepped forward. Raising her glowing hands, she spoke in her own alien language, her voice strong and commanding. The runes on the walls responded, pulsing brighter. The guardians froze, their heads turning toward her. Daniel watched in awe as the light wrapped around her like a shield. For a moment, it seemed as if the creatures obeyed her. But then, one guardian growled and leapt at them. Daniel fired instantly. The blast, striking the creature's chest, it screeched and fell, its body twitching before going still. The other guardians roared in anger, rushing forward. The girl screamed and activated her alien device, a small crystal orb she carried. It exploded with light, forming a barrier on them. The creatures slammed into the glowing shield, their claws scraping, their teeth snapping. Daniel grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her back toward the exit of the chamber. The shield flickered, cracking under the pressure. They had only seconds before it shattered. "Run!" Daniel shouted. Together they dashed between the broken machines, the creatures chasing close behind. The girl's shield collapsed, sending a burst of light across the floor. The guardian stumbled, blinded for a moment. Daniel used the chance to fire again, blasting another creature into the shadows. But there were too many. More claws, more glowing eyes, more screeches filled the chamber. The ruins shook with their fury. At the far end, Daniel spotted a narrow stairway carved into the stone. "Up there!" he shouted, pointing. The girl followed, her glowing skin lighting the steps. The creatures lunged after them, claws ripping into the stone walls. Daniel fired behind him as they ran, his shots echoing through the chamber. The stairway twisted sharply, leading them into another passage above. They collapsed at the top, gasping for air. The creatures stopped below, snarling, but they did not climb the steps. Instead, they lingered, pacing in circles, their eyes still glowing in the dark. Daniel aimed his light down, studying them. It was strange. They could have chased, but they didn't. It was as if they were guarding the chamber, refusing to leave. The girl whispered, "They cannot leave their place. They are bound." Her words were filled with both relief and sadness. She turned to Daniel, her voice soft. "You fight like one of us." Daniel shook his head. "No, I fight because I have to." But inside, he knew something was changing. He was no longer just an explorer. The ruins, the girl, the creatures, they were pulling him into something far bigger. The girl sat beside him, her eyes glowing softly in the dark. She looked at him with both gratitude and curiosity. "You saved me," she said simply. Daniel gave a small nod, but his mind was racing. Why were these guardians bound to the ruins? What was the gate of the ancients she spoke of? And why did the ruins respond to his touch? The answers were hidden deeper inside, but he also knew each step forward would bring more danger. The girl placed her hand gently on his arm. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "The path only grows darker now." Daniel stared into the shadows ahead, somewhere beyond the guardians. Beyond the ruins lay the truth, and he was no longer sure if he wanted to find it. But something deep inside told him he had no choice. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The stairway led them into a narrow corridor. The air grew colder, thick with dust and the smell of stone. Daniel's flashlight flickered against walls covered with strange alien runes. Glowing faintly like veins of fire, the alien girl walked silently beside him, her glowing skin casting a soft light. Her expression was tense, her lips pressed tight, her steps careful as if each stone carried memory. Daniel noticed her eyes flicker with fear every time the runes pulsed brighter. It was clear she had been here before, or at least had heard stories of this place. The passage opened into a wide hall, and at the far end stood a massive gate. It rose higher than the ceiling, made of dark black stone, covered in shifting runes that seemed alive. Each symbol glowed and faded like breathing. The gate hummed softly, a low sound that shook Daniel's chest. He froze in awe, unable to speak. The alien girl dropped to her knees, her eyes wide with dread. She whispered in her broken English, "The Forbidden's Gate. Daniel approached slowly, the beam of his flashlight trembling against the massive door. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The gate felt ancient, older than human history, older than her people. As he reached out his hand, the alien girl cried out, "No, don't touch." Her voice echoed sharply, bouncing off the stone walls. Daniel stopped, his hand inches from the runes. He turned to her. "What is it?" "What? Does this gate hide?" The girl shook her head violently, her eyes filled with fear. "Dark power. No one should open. It changes everything." The gate pulsed brighter, almost as if it had heard her words. A strange vibration filled the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. Stones shifted under their feet. Daniel pulled back, his instincts warning him, but his curiosity burned inside. Why would something so dangerous be left here? And why did her people fear it so much? Suddenly, he noticed footprints on the dusty floor. They were fresh, human-like, but larger. Someone else had been here recently. Daniel knelt, studying the prints, his fingers brushing the dust. "They're not yours," he muttered. The alien girl shook her head quickly, her voice low. "Others. Hunters." Her fear deepened, her eyes scanning the shadows of the hall. Daniel gripped his weapon tighter, his instincts sharp. If others were here, they were not far. The gate groaned suddenly. A low rumble like thunder. The runes shifted, changing into new symbols as if the stone itself was alive. Daniel's flashlight flickered out, leaving only the glowing runes and the alien girl's faint blue light. He cursed under his breath, smacking the flashlight, but it did not return. The girl stepped closer, trembling, her voice shaking. "The gate. It reacts to you." Daniel looked at her in disbelief. "To me? Why me?" She swallowed hard. "Because human. Maybe chosen." Her words made no sense. Yet the way the gate pulsed when he stood near made his skin crawl. The silence broke with a sharp sound. From the far side of the hall came the echo of footsteps, not the skittering of guardians, but deliberate, heavy steps. Daniel raised his weapon. The girl grabbed his arm, her eyes wide. From the shadows, 3 tall figures emerged, cloaked in dark armor. Their eyes glowed faint red through their helmets, their weapons strange and sharp. They were not guardians, they were something else. The alien girl gasped, whispering, "Hunters." The hunters stepped forward slowly, their voices cold and mechanical. "Step away from the gate," one of them commanded. Daniel aimed his weapon, his heart pounding. "What do you want?" he shouted. The hunters' reply was chilling. "The key. The girl carries it." The alien girl stiffened, clutching the small crystal orb she carried. Daniel looked at her sharply. "You didn't tell me this." Her lips trembled. I couldn't." The hunters advanced, their armor clanking softly against the stone floor. Daniel stepped in front of the girl, weapon raised. "You're not taking her," he said firmly. The hunters laughed, the sound echoing strangely. "You think you can stop us, human?" One hissed. Daniel's grip tightened, his finger ready on the trigger. The girl clutched his arm, whispering desperately, "We must run." But before they could move, the gate roared. A deep vibration shook the hall, louder than thunder. The runes blazed with blinding light, filling the chamber with a storm of energy. The hunters stumbled, shielding their eyes, their armor sparking. Daniel pulled the girl back, covering her with his body. The gate's light formed a circle around them, humming like a heartbeat. The girl looked up in terror. "It calls you," she whispered. Daniel's chest tightened, the pulsing of the gate echoing in his own heartbeat. The hunters struggled forward, their voices filled with rage. "Give us the key," they shouted. Daniel raised his weapon, his voice steady. "You'll have to kill me first." The runes on the gate twisted, forming a shape that looked almost like a keycard. The girl gasped, pulling the crystal orb from her clothes. It shone brightly, resonating with the gate's light. Daniel realized the truth. This orb was the key. The hunters roared, charging forward. Daniel fired, his shots echoing like thunder, striking their armor. the girl screamed. Holding the orb high, the gate's light exploded, shaking the entire ruin. For a moment, everything went white. Daniel felt the ground vanish under his feet, his body weightless. The roar of the gate filled his ears. When the light faded, the hunters were gone, thrown back into the shadows. Daniel and the girl stood trembling before the still glowing gate. The orb in her hand now pulsed like a living heart. She turned to Daniel, her eyes wide and afraid. "You cannot leave now," she whispered. "The Forbidden Gate has chosen you. ****. The Forbidden Gate still glowed faintly behind them. Its deep hum echoed like a heartbeat through the stone hall. Daniel stood with his weapon ready, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. The alien girl clutched the crystal orb, her glowing hands shaking. Her wide eyes never left the gate, as if it might open again at any second. For a moment, silence filled the ruins, broken only by their ragged breathing. But silence in a place like this was never safe. A faint sound drifted through the shadows. Not the clicking claws of guardians, not the rumble of the gate, but soft footsteps, careful and slow. Daniel spun toward the noise, his weapon raised. The girl gasped, clutching his arm. From the darkness, 3 figures emerged, not hunters this time, but beings of her own kind, aliens with glowing blue skin like hers, dressed in dark robes marked with silver symbols. Their eyes glimmered coldly in the faint light. The girl whispered in shock, "My people," but her voice trembled, not with relief, but with fear. One of the robed aliens stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You should not be here, child," he said in her language, then turned his gaze to Daniel. "And you, human, step away." Daniel didn't move, his grip tightening on his weapon. "What do you want?" he demanded. The alien leader's lips curled into a thin smile. "The key," he said coldly, his eyes flashing toward the orb in the girl's hands. The girl shook her head violently, pressing the orb against her chest. "No," she whispered. "It must not fall to you." Her words were filled with terror. Daniel's suspicion grew sharper. He glanced at the robed aliens, their posture tense, their eyes cold. These were not rescuers. These were hunters in disguise. The leader stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You do not understand, child," he said to the girl. "The orb belongs to us. It always has." The girl clung tighter to Daniel's arm, her glowing eyes wet with fear. "Don't trust them," she whispered quickly. "They betrayed us long ago." The air thickened with tension. Daniel raised his weapon slightly, his voice steady. "She stays with me," he said. The robed aliens hissed, their faces twisting with anger. "You protect what is not yours, human," the leader snarled. Daniel's finger tightened on the trigger. "Maybe," he said firmly, "but I protect what they want to steal." The shadows stirred suddenly. More robed figures emerged from hidden corners. Surrounding them, their glowing eyes locked on the girl, their hands reaching for the orb. The girl pressed closer to Daniel, whispering desperately, "We must escape." Daniel's heart pounded, his eyes darting to every corner. They were outnumbered, but not out of options. The leader raised his hand, and the runes on the wall blazed. The entire chamber pulsed with alien light. The ground shook, dust falling from the ceiling. Daniel fired a shot, the blast echoing through the hall. One of the robed figures fell back, screaming. The others roared. Charging forward, the girl cried out, holding the orb high. It pulsed with blinding light, throwing the attackers back. For a moment, but their fury did not fade. They wanted the orb, and they would not stop. Daniel grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her toward a narrow passage. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted through the shadows, their footsteps pounding against the stone. Behind them, the robed aliens shouted in rage, their voices echoing like thunder. The girl stumbled, but Daniel pulled her up, refusing to slow. The orb glowed brighter, almost guiding their path. Its light revealed a hidden stairway, twisting downward into deeper darkness. They descended quickly, the air growing colder. The sound of pursuit followed them. The robed aliens close behind, The girl gasped between breaths. They were once guardians too. But they betrayed the oath. Daniel's eyes narrowed. So they want the gate for themselves. She nodded weakly. Yes. They believe it gives power. But it only brings ruin. The stairway ended in a small chamber. At the center stood a broken statue, carved in the shape of a towering alien figure, its hands held out as if offering something. Daniel shone his light, and his heart froze. In the statue's stone palm lay another object, a second orb, cracked but still glowing faintly. The girl gasped, her voice filled with shock. A twin key, she whispered. Before Daniel could reply, shadows filled the chamber. The robed aliens had caught up, their leader stepping forward with a cruel smile. You cannot run forever, he sneered. Daniel raised his weapon. Standing in front of the girl, the leader pointed toward him, his voice sharp. Kill the human, take the keys. The battle erupted. Daniel fired shot after shot, the sound shaking the chamber. The girl raised her orb, blasting waves of light against their attackers. The robed aliens struck back, their dark energy clashing with her glowing shield. Stone shattered, dust filled the air. Daniel fought fiercely, his weapons scorching the ground around them. But they were too many. The leader advanced, his eyes glowing with hunger. He reached for the orb in the girl's hand, his voice triumphant. The key belongs to us. But in that moment, something strange happened. The cracked orb in the statue's hand lit up, pulsing in harmony with the girl's orb. The light connected them like a thread of fire. The chamber shook violently, the walls cracking. The leader froze, his face stood with fear. No. This cannot be, he gasped. Daniel grabbed the girl and pulled her back as the two orbs blazed brighter. A deep hum filled the chamber. The shadows of the robed aliens flickered, their bodies trembling as the light grew stronger. The girl's voice shook. The keys awakened together. The chamber roared, the light bursting outward. The betrayers screamed, thrown back into the shadows. Daniel shielded the girl with his body as the ground split beneath them. When the light faded, silence returned. The robed aliens were gone, vanished into the dark. The girl lay trembling, the orb still glowing in her hands. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "We are marked now. They will never stop hunting us." Daniel looked down at her, his jaw tight. "Then we'll fight," he said simply, but deep inside, he knew the betrayal was only the beginning. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The chamber still shook from the light that had burst out. Dust fell from the cracked ceiling. Stones rolled across the floor. Daniel coughed, pulling the alien girl to her feet. Her hands clutched the glowing orb tightly, its pulsing light now. Softer, steadier. She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. But there was also something new in her gaze. "Trust," she whispered. "They will come again." Daniel nodded grimly, scanning the broken chamber with his weapon ready. "Yes," he said, "but so will we." In the rubble, something glimmered faintly. Daniel narrowed his eyes, stepping closer. Buried halfway under the shattered statue was a small rectangular object. He knelt and brushed the dust away, revealing a strange metallic card. It was thin, black, and etched with the same glowing runes as the gate. The light inside it pulsed gently, almost like it was alive. Daniel lifted it carefully, and the moment he touched it, the runes flared brighter. The girl gasped, her voice trembling. That is not meant for me." Daniel frowned, turning the card in his hand. "What is it?" he asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "A keycard. Destiny chooses who may hold it." The card hummed softly in his palm. Daniel felt a strange heat travel up his arm. It was not painful, but it was powerful, almost like the ruins themselves had recognized him. He clenched his jaw, forcing his mind to stay steady. The girl stared at him, her voice low. "It bonded to you." Daniel shook his head, refusing to believe such nonsense. "I'm just a man," he muttered, "a human explorer, nothing more." But deep down, he knew she was right. The air in the chamber thickened. The walls pulsed faintly as if reacting to the keycard. The orb in the girl's hand glowed in rhythm. With it, together, they hummed like two hearts beating the same rhythm. The girl's face grew pale, her voice tight. The ancients made these, not for us, not for my people, but for yours. Daniel's breath caught, his grip tightening. On the card, for humans? He asked sharply. She nodded slowly, her crystal eyes glimmering with fear. Yes. They feared humans, or maybe trusted them too much. Before Daniel could respond, a sharp noise echoed from the corridor above. Footsteps, heavy and fast. The girl flinched, clutching his arm. They found us, she whispered. Daniel stuffed the keycard into a slot on his chest armor, gripping his weapon tight. Then we don't let them take it, he growled. The first hunter appeared in the doorway, his red glowing eyes piercing the dust. More followed, armored figures with blades and rifles. They moved like predators, their steps calm but deadly. The leader pointed toward Daniel, his voice sharp and cold. The keycard. Give it to us. Daniel raised his weapon, standing tall. You'll have to pry it from my dead body, he snapped. The girl gasped softly, but she didn't stop him. She knew there was no surrender, not now. The hunters charged, weapons raised. Daniel fired, the blast echoing through the chamber. The girl lifted her orb, its light flashing in bursts to block their attacks. The chamber filled with fire, smoke, and glowing energy. The ground shook as explosions cracked the stone walls. Daniel fought with everything he had, dodging and firing, but the hunters were strong, their armor absorbing much of his fire. One of them lunged close, slashing with a blade. Daniel barely blocked it, sparks flying as metal clashed against his weapon. The force sent him stumbling back. The girl cried out, blasting the attacker. With her orb, light engulfed the hunter, throwing him against the wall with a crash. Still, more came. Their voices roared. The key belongs to us. Daniel's jaw clenched, his chest burning with fury. No, he shouted, it belongs to me. The keycard pulsed in his armor, glowing through the dust. Suddenly, it sent out a wave of energy, knocking several hunters off their feet. The entire ruin shook, runes blazing across the walls. The girl stared at him in awe, her voice trembling. It responds to your will. Daniel froze, his mind racing. If the keycard reacted to him, then maybe he could control it. He pressed his hand against the glowing rune lines, focusing his thoughts. The card pulsed harder, brighter. For a moment, the ruins fell silent. Then a panel opened in the chamber wall, revealing a hidden path glowing faintly with alien light. The girl gasped. It shows the way. Daniel nodded, grabbing her hand. Then let's go, he said firmly. They rushed into the hidden path as the hunters roared behind them. The walls glowed, guiding their steps deeper into the ruins. The path twisted and turned, filled with alien markings that seemed to shift as they passed. Daniel felt the keycard grow warmer in his chest, like it was leading them forward. The girl whispered, "It takes us to the heart, the truth of the ancients." Her voice was a mix of awe and dread. Daniel didn't answer, but his mind was burning with questions. Why him? Why humans? And what would happen if the keycard unlocked something too dangerous to control? Finally, the passage ended in another vast chamber. At the center stood a towering structure of crystal and stone. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the orb and the keycard. The girl's eyes widened in shock. Her voice trembled. The core. Daniel stepped closer, his hand brushing the keycard. The structure flared with light, recognizing him instantly. The girl grabbed his arm, her face pale. "Be careful. Once you awaken it, nothing will ever be the same." Daniel stared at the glowing core, his heart racing. He knew this was more than fate. This was a choice, and humanity's future might depend on it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The core pulsed like a living heart at the center of the chamber. Its crystal surface glowed with waves of light that rippled across the walls. Daniel stood frozen, his hand tight around the glowing keycard. The alien girl stood beside him, clutching her orb, her breath fast and shallow. The whole ruin hummed as if waiting, watching. expecting. The silence was heavy, yet beneath it, there was power, a power that called to him. The girl whispered, her voice trembling, "It knows you." Daniel's jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on the core. He didn't want to believe it, but deep inside he felt the truth. The card bonded to him, the gate reacted to him, and now the core responded to his presence. It was no accident. The ancients had left something here, and they had chosen humans to wield it. But why? The question hammered in his mind. Were humans meant to protect this power, or to destroy it? The girl's hand touched his arm gently. Her crystal eyes searched his face with both fear and hope. "You must choose," she said softly. "Open the core, or leave it sleeping." Before Daniel could answer, the sound of footsteps shook the chamber. From the shadows at the entrance came the hunters, their armor glowing red with rage. Behind them, the surviving robed aliens crept forward, their eyes burning with hunger. Two enemies, both different, but united in their desire to take the power. Daniel raised his weapon instinctively, his body tense. The girl clung to his side, whispering, "They will not stop. Not until they have it." The leader of the hunters stepped forward, his metallic voice cold. "Human, you are weak. Give us the keycard. Give us the core." The robed alien leader hissed, his voice sharp. "No, it belongs to us. It always has. Your kind cannot be trusted." The chamber shook with their shouts, their greed filling the air. The core pulsed brighter. Reacting to the chaos, Daniel felt the keycard grow hot in his chest. The ruins trembled as if urging him to act. His voice cut through the noise, steady and fierce. "No one takes it," he said. The hunters roared and charged, their blades flashing. The robed aliens unleashed dark energy, bolts of light crashing into the floor. Daniel grabbed the girl and pulled her behind a broken pillar. Firing back, the chamber erupted in battle. Screeches, blasts, and shouts filled the air. The core pulsed harder with every strike, its light growing dangerously bright. Daniel fired again, knocking one hunter to the ground. The girl raised her orb, shielding them from a wave of dark energy. But they were trapped, surrounded on both sides. The enemies fought each other as much as they fought Daniel. Yet their true goal was the same, the core. Daniel's heart pounded as he glanced at the keycard in his hand. If he used it, maybe the core would unleash its power. It could destroy them all. Or it could destroy everything. The girl shouted over the chaos, her voice desperate. "Daniel, the core obeys you, but only you. What will you do?" Her words cut through the noise like a blade. He realized this was not just his fight. This was humanity's choice. The ancients had left this power for humans, but not as a gift. It was a test. Could humanity control it, or would they be consumed by it? Daniel's hand trembled, his mind torn. He could feel the core calling to him, offering strength beyond measure. He could end the battle in one strike, but at what cost? The girl's glowing eyes met his, pleading silently. She did not want to see the core unleashed, yet she trusted him to decide. The hunters roared. The robed aliens shrieked. The chamber shook with fury. Daniel lifted the keycard high. The core blazed with light, flooding the chamber. The enemies froze, shielding their eyes. The girl gasped, clutching his arm tightly. The keycard vibrated in his hand, demanding his will. Daniel's voice thundered. "In the chamber, I choose," he said. The light burst outward like a storm. Hunters and robed aliens screamed as the wave engulfed them. Their bodies flickered, torn apart by the energy, their voices fading into silence. The ruins quaked as if the planet itself cried out. Then, slowly the light dimmed. Daniel stood at the center, the keycard glowing faintly in his palm. The enemies were gone, wiped away by the core's judgment. The girl stared at him in awe and fear. Her voice was a whisper. "You controlled it." Daniel breathed heavily, lowering the card. He felt drained, but alive. The core pulsed once more, then grew silent, its light fading into stillness. It had answered him, but only for now. The girl stepped closer, her hand on his chest, her eyes searching his. You chose mercy, not destruction, she said softly. Daniel nodded slowly. I didn't want power, he muttered. I just wanted us to live. But deep inside, he knew it wasn't over. The core was still alive, still waiting, and the keycard was bound. To him, he carried it now, not just as a tool, but as a burden. The girl pressed the orb into his hand, her voice steady. Keep it, human. It belongs to you now. Daniel frowned. Why me? Her glowing eyes met his with a strange calm. Because only humans can bear the weight. They turned toward the dark corridor beyond the chamber. The ruins were quiet, but the silence was uneasy. Daniel placed the keycard inside his armor. Once more, feeling its faint hum against his chest, the girl walked beside him, her steps slow but steady. Together they moved deeper into the shadows, neither knowing what waited ahead, but both certain of one thing: the choice Daniel made tonight would shape the future of more than just one world. It would shape the fate of humanity itself. ****.